Welcome to We the People. Joining me today is Tim Utes, who is running for Minnesota House of Representatives in the Columbia Heights District. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Sue. How are you doing today?
I'm so happy to be back. I'm so glad people are so excited about what we've put together, and they're amazed at the information that we provide to them each and every week. So thank you so much for running. Why don't you start out and tell people why you decided to run for Minnesota House of Representatives?
All right. Well, about 2008, I realized, or during the last election cycle, I realized that we weren't getting the quality candidates. People go into office and actually vote the Constitution. They voted party. They voted their loyalties to different groups and organizations. And so through a series of events running through the state Republican Party, I found out that we don't get what we're paying for as far as people who are going to follow the law, follow the rule of law. And so I jumped on board and got involved.
Follow the Constitution? You expect elected officials to follow the Constitution?
Well, it's kind of strange. That's their only sworn oath, is to follow the state and federal Constitution. That's their job. And I've discovered, being down at state capitol, watching the process, that very rarely happens anymore.
And I think it's absolutely fantastic. I want to mention this to all the people too, that for one of your lit pieces, you handed out copies of the Constitution.
Yes, we hand out the federal Constitution. Even though I'm running for state office, we are trying to raise some money so we can buy several thousand of the state constitutions and hand them out, preferably over the federal Constitution, because I'm running for state office.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so this week, should we talk a few issues?
Sure, let's try a couple, see how we do.
All right. This week we heard Singing from the Mountaintops as they talked about the unemployment rate dropping from 10.2% to 10% nationwide.
Correct.
And I try to tell people a 10% unemployment rate is nothing to write home about.
Right.
People should be concerned. Many people have stopped looking for jobs. Many people are underemployed, a tremendous problem. You normally think of a 40-hour work week. Well, you have people who are working 30, 32 hours a week instead.
Correct.
And they're happy to have their jobs.
Yes.
So, and I also think once the revised numbers come in again, you'll see those numbers will pop back up a little bit too. So let's talk about unemployment a little bit.
Well, real quickly, the drop in unemployment was partly due to the economic stimulus package that was spent during the summer and early fall. That's waning now. And all the economists at the federal level are looking at the lack of follow-up by the private sector in that. And so there's concern that that number is going to go back up. What I have, people learn from visual effects. And so what I've found on the website is a site that has from January of 2007 until October of 2009, the unemployment rate by county. And it's the darker the county, the higher the unemployment rate. This stops at 8.7%, I believe the unemployment rate in October was, and it's now 10. So once you watch this video, realize that there's more darker areas, and it actually doesn't have a 10% rate in this county, but it's the whole United States by county, and you can see the progress of the change in unemployment. In October of last year, there's a real dramatic change in the unemployment rate, and you can see it reflected in this county by county map. So I'm going to play that for you now so that people can watch that, and we'll talk about unemployment a little bit more.
Let's watch the map. It is incredible to see what happens. Wow.
Yes.
Wow. And that's only 8%.
That's 8.8.
8.8%.
That's not 10.2 or 10.
And we're over 10.
And this doesn't reflect the masses of people who are underemployed or given up. And they're estimating that could be as high, could bring unemployment up to about 18 to 20%.
And now the big concern is, why isn't the private sector following?
They're doing what a lot of Americans are doing. They're putting the money in their pocket and holding on to it is what they're doing. They're paying off debt. One other point about this is, you watch that video, it's like a cancer. It's crossing the country. And it's very dramatic and very, when I first saw this a few weeks ago, I fell over watching it. I didn't realize the impact. Yeah, I understand my little community, but across the entire United States. And this is what the people at the national level are looking at. And unfortunately, from my perspective, they're ignoring what they're seeing.
I agree. So what can be done in the state of Minnesota to turn this around?
Well, that's a tough question, Sue.
I don't think so.
One thing is, we got to take the state, we got to take government and put it back in a bottle. And the bottle is our Constitution. Years ago, back in 1867, I believe it is in Minnesota, I have to check, I think it was 1867, that Minnesota set up a constitution, and it set up the parameters for government and said, this is the limit of government. And what's happened is, over time, government has continued to expand faster than our economy has expanded, and intruded into the private, personal lives of the private sector. And as a result, people become more dependent on government and less dependent on their self and less personally responsible. You can't continue doing that. At some point, the glass jar breaks, and as you can see in the unemployment area, this is one of those areas. When government doesn't have the capacity to employ all these people in this map that we saw, that's up to the private sector. And by government being outside the bottle, it taxes and burdens to people to the point where they don't invest. There becomes a point where people say, it's just not worth trying to make money, because the more money I make, the less I have.
It's very refreshing to hear a candidate understand what's causing some of the problems with the private sector's skepticism to expand the job market. Why would any business owner, any small business owner, want to hire more employees or expand their business when they're so unsure of what's going to happen? Here in the state of Minnesota, year after year after year, we see our elected officials do two things. One, they put together a $1 billion bonding bill, and they borrow a whole bunch of money to spend on a whole bunch of different projects, and they call that their jobs bill. That's one of their solutions. Yep. Their other solution last year was to extend the unemployment benefits.
Correct.
Even though we had no money, even though by year end it was broke, we were going to have to borrow more money to pay for these extended unemployment benefits. What do you think of those solutions?
Well, unemployment benefits is actually employer paid and employer sponsored to some point. What's happened now is the people's benefits have ran out to those extensions. The government's chosen to step in and support those unemployed people. That's a tough call. It really is a tough call. The bigger issue is that we have to get government to stop spending money, period. If you take unemployment, the amount of money spent of $33 billion at biennium or whatever it is that the state spends, unemployment, you can't even find it on the radar. Our bigger issues is, what is the general spending of state government to get it under control?